Counsel Maria Dela Cruz, absent. Counsel Pavel Piano, absent. Counsel Abdu, absent. Counsel Selena Reyes,
Present.
Counsel Gonzalez,
Present.
Counsel Levy, absent. President LaPlante,
Present.
we have a quorum.
We did. So we have. So, Councilor, the item that we have in the agenda is item 25221, which is representing submitted by the city clerk, Diane LeBlanc. I know that we have Pedro Soto, who, according to this agenda, is going to be the first one to do the introduction.
Well, good evening. My name is Pedro Soto. I'm the planning director with the City of Lawrence. I apologize. We're running into a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we'll try our best with the hard copy that we have. We'll just have to pass a few maps around that we have. Well, give me 1 second. Let me just grab my notes. So like I said, Pedro Soto, planning director. For the record, my address is 177 Washington Street in Lynn. I'm going to be joined by my colleague Dan McCarthy, our land use planner. So tonight we're going to be discussing the re-precincting process. I'm not going to go through the details of kind of how we got here, how we actually go about re-precincting. I know that you had somebody from the state come in and do that, so I will not put you through that again and share more information, be redundant. But what I want to go through are a few things that were shared. And just as a reminder, just go through the steps. There's two things that I'll go over with you in the intro. The first is Appendix A, which is provided on your second sheet of this paper here that you had at your desk. And essentially the next steps provided by the Secretary regarding this process. So as you are aware, a couple weeks ago, this body voted for option A, to proceed with option A. So we're on that track. One of the things that we had to do in that process was really form a working group. We met last week. I'll go over that in a second, kind of what we've done to satisfy the requirements from the state. So a couple of steps here just to go over recommended by the state. So we decided on option A. That's step one. Step two, we're going to be reviewing these maps. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at these maps in a little bit more detail. These are all drafts, and they're provided to the municipality for any potential changes for us to review by the state. So the working group has been working diligently on just kind of looking at the maps and the changes from 2010 to 2020. We do have a couple of changes material changes we're calling, that we want to share with all of you. We'll get to that in a moment. Third step is finalize all submission material. So we do need to come together as a body in our working group. I think we're making a recommendation, but the council does need to vote on that, and we'll get the necessary materials prepared for the state as a formal response to option A. And on step 4, we're actually going to be doing that by a simple email that we have to submit our response to, so we'll do that. And then ultimately the board, this body needs to vote on that. This process we need to finish by the end of the year. I think we don't, if you look at page 2, we'll look at the schedule that we have set. We don't want to wait till the end of the year to do that. We did build in a little buffer time for this. So as I mentioned, if you're looking at this Appendix A, the working group had a kickoff last week, and we just essentially looked at the schedule to see if it made sense for us, and see if any changes need to be made, and we decided that we did want to add a November 15th date. So we're here tonight, Committee of the Whole. We're here convened. The purpose of tonight's meeting is really just to learn a little bit more about what our land use planner, Dan McCarthy, is going to share. On November 15th, that's when all of you will have a chance to provide feedback on what you've learned tonight. The general public will also have an opportunity, and I'll share in a minute, what channels they have to share, provide input and feedback, just share with us how they feel this process is going to impact them and their key issues. We did also schedule November 22nd, November 29th as alternate dates if we needed to have a scheduled meeting like tonight to share additional feedback or input. So that's available to us. We may not need it, but we may. I don't know. So we just schedule that just as a redundancy. And ultimately on December 2nd, our City Council President, LaPlante, will let us know, I think tonight, whether or not we need to do that. You're going to call that. I guess we'll have a little bit more conversation whether or not that's needed.
That's the anticipation to have a December 2nd special meeting, because I think that we need to dedicate an evening for that, and because of the scheduling, we may need to implement it.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. I'm going to pass the mic to Dan McCarthy. I think I'm going to play his right hand and pass some maps around for all of you as you go through the descriptions. How's that sound?
I can make a set of copies and hand out to the people in charge here right now.
Okay.
If you want.
So let me just move this for a second.
Pause for a second. I'll round back and make the copy.
Did anybody not get a copy of this? Thank you for your patience as we work through this technical difficulty.
Councilor, I know that in the last meeting that we had, Councilor President was encourage us just to kind of meet with Dan McCarthy. If anyone has any question. I met with him. He made a lot of clarification. Not necessarily that I'm agree with it, but at least we can get all the information that we might want to bring for our next meeting.
So for those at home, as I describe each section of this map that we're going to talk about, I'm going to hold it up, and I think Bill's going to try and get it close in as much as possible to see what we're talking about. So as I analyze the map, comparing the 2010 and the 2020 breakdown of the precincts, we found four what we call material changes. And a material change in the map is where a portion of one precinct moves into a precinct of another area. So, and there are four citywide precinct changes. I just want to point out, every precinct has some minor changes within their own district, where a street might change here or there. So you may be going from A1 to A2. But the ones we're talking about tonight that I'm going to point out are the ones where they're moving from one district to another district. So the first one I call Cross District 1. I'll show if Bill can get this at home, in Cross District. And this is a situation where a portion of District A will be going into District B. In this situation, when you look at the color code, the color portion of this map is the proposed 2020 map. The black line are the lines of the former 2010 map. So as you can see, a portion of A1 from Bruce Street down Berkeley is going to be going into B3, and a portion from Berkeley to Park Street will also be going into B3. That's, no, actually, I take that back. It's, that section will be going from, no, that's correct, so that is correct. Major change A2, the line between A2 and B2 is going to move one street from Newberry Street, from East Havel Street over to Newberry Street, capturing 2 blocks. So there will be 2 blocks changing from District A to District B. And the third major change, material change, is in the lower portion of District F, where the portion of District F that used to go from Canal Street to Methuen Street will now be going into Area B. So, and that's about a 5-block section of the city. And the final one is the largest one. And the line from the existing line from Area D4 will be moving from Franklin Street down to a part of Lawrence Street and a bigger part of it to Jackson Street. So it'll be actually moving 1, 2, 3, about 4 blocks in that direction, and will encompass about 20 blocks altogether. We'll be moving from from Ward B to Ward D. So those are the major changes. District C and Districts E will not be altered at all. The boundaries will remain the same. There'll be some internal changes, but they aren't going to be affected. Again, now this is the map that's been created by the state and proposed, and this is the one we're working. We've agreed to work with the state, and the state officers who handle this at the Secretary of State's level, their IT department is going to work with us. And so the purpose of putting this out here tonight is we're going to make all this material available. We also have another map coming which identifies all the precincts where the polling votes are, where all the candidates live, and where all the candidates, elected candidates, and the runners-up are all seated, because that's important in the case of, in any time in the future where the runner-up might have to take a place of a person, to make sure they're sitting in the proper jurisdiction. So that material will be all coming to you with those maps. And what we're proposing is that you take a week to digest this material, work with the planning office. I know, I believe Council President LaPlante Spoke to you last week, and you offered my services. Everybody here should have my personal number and my office number, and are free to contact me at any time. I'm free evenings, nights, anyways, to go over this. We want to get your input by next week. We have a very, very tight calendar to do this. So what we want by next Monday at this time, is to have all your input, to have the suggestions, and so that we can move back, step back with a working group, head to Boston and sit down with the Boston State Department, Secretary of State's office, and show them what we want. They are the ones who have the expertise in this type of mapping process, and that will take it from there. So that's basically the project going out. Like Pedro said, we have a very tight timeline on this. We need to come up with an agreement with the state and with all the councilors that will be agreed upon prior to the December 2nd meeting of this board, of this special group. And then you will have to vote on it so that we can get the vote back to the state by December 15th to make this legitimate. So that's our timeline, to get a December 2nd vote. We have Thanksgiving falling in between there, so we have a lot of work on our tables, but as I said, my time is free to make available for anybody who wants to speak.
Councilor Abdu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. McCarthy, just to emphasize deadlines, milestones. My understanding from Mr. Owens, who addressed us as the Secretary of State, which makes it more incumbent upon us
Yeah.
to hit every deadline.
The schedule I'm talking about now is that we make the agreements, we have it analyzed and decided before December 2nd, to have the state on board by December 2nd for when this board votes, when this council votes. So yes, that is, I agree with that.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Push? Depressed, yeah. Finger on it.
All right, I guess it's like, well, thank you, McCarthy, for allowing me to have a meeting with you a few days ago about this. And essentially, what we have discussed is the changes within district, and the internal changes and the external changes. The changes that we have on D4 and B3, it is the largest that we have seen on these current maps. And what I would like to see, if possible, before we move forward with the November 15 meeting, is to see how, if the state can run a new map, to see how close they can get it, based on data that you already have, as close as they can get it as the existing condition that we have from 10 years ago. I know that when they run these maps, they run it based on just data and not necessarily analyzing what we have seen. And I know that they can also kind of like, probably run new maps to see how closer they can get it, especially the external changes, which between D4 and B3 and other districts are significant. But the more importantly as well is the internal changes. Perhaps on D1 and D4, we have a significant changes within the district, which are internal changes that are going to affect significantly people living in the same project. Perhaps the Hancock projects, they were split on half, which they're going to discourage people from voting, because there is going to be people voting on one side of the city, and then another set of people within the same project voting on another side of the city, which is significant changes on the internal section of the present. So there is going to be also a lot of development, like we have discussed on the meeting. Close to 100 apartments are going to be, no, close to 400 apartments, right? 400 apartments
Yeah,
that are going to be on that section that is now being taken care of by this map as well,
possible.
which is going to be within D4 and B4. And that's crazy because, I mean, they don't have that data yet. But 300 apartments on Matuna Street, more than 20 apartments here right next to City Hall. There is a couple of others developments, which is major, significant growth population that they're not taking care of. And essentially, those apartments are going to be there. So we might have districts that are going to be significantly more higher in terms of population than others. Not that long from now, we're going to say 6 months, because all those apartments are in the process of being full right now. And I was wondering to see if we can have, based on information that we can give the state, probably new maps that are more close to the existing condition from 2010 to have less impact on voters. I know it's not difficult for the state because they have all the data. It's a matter of just running the map based on what we tell them to do, so we can study a more efficient and less changeable maps than what we currently have on those changes, on those maps that we have right now. I don't know. I mean, I think it's important to keep the communities very close to what they were before, and if we're going to make changes, we got to make changes that make more sense based on what we tell them. Perhaps when we talk about District D and District C, we split Tower Hill right in the middle. But we have a population living there that they're not even able to elect anybody because they are the minority within the majority community. And that's also an issue because I understand that was an issue with the Hispanic community back then, who knows, 10, 12 years ago. But now it's within other community within Lawrence that doesn't have the representation, probably, that they deserve because of splitting districts right in between. And that happened in Tower Hill. Tower Hill is split in half between District C and District D. And that's also against the law because we're not allowing communities to actually be serving by one councilor or somebody that perhaps going to represent them well. So I think that we should at least take that into account and ask the state to see if they can probably have a second set of maps that are more close to what we currently have and making changes that make more sense based on the current condition and current population that is being undercount exactly on District B4 and D4, present D4 and B4. And I'm pretty sure Councilor Stella would like to also see that.
Yes, before I get back to you, yes, I think it makes more sense because I can see my constitution from 198 go to Gilmet to vote. I mean, this is a long ride. That makes no sense. So I think I'm going to echo in second what Councilor Rodriguez was just said, because it's only make more sense. Councilor President.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice President. So just a couple of things through.
Yes.
We need to get this information live on our city's website, so I'm going to ask again to get
That
this.
immediately.
Thank you. We need to get that. Plus, I think there's already been an email set up. Can you state what that email address is for residents? If you're not, I can help you with that.
City Council President, thank you. One of the things I do want to share is, as we move forward in the process, our group, our working group, is going to be in constant communication with the state, with Michael Owen and his team, and just sharing where we are in the process. They've asked us to do that, and we're committed to do that. And we're looking forward to hearing more feedback from all of you, as well as the general public. So to that point, we did set up, thank you for the patience on getting this all up and running, but we did a few things to get feedback. The first is in providing kind of input or more information to all of you in the public. We did set up kind of a reservoir, a shared point, where all of these documents, these maps, are available for the public to view, to download. And as we make iterations, if any, those will be available as well and noted. We also have a re-precincting at cityoflawrence.com email address, which comes to me, and we'll capture all of that. For the record, I have the honor to chair the working group, so hopefully all the communication and new information will be funneled through my office. And also we've created a website, www.cityoflawrence.com/914/re.precincting. So we'll share that. We're going to be sharing all of these points of interest here. We have in the planning department kind of our most common stakeholders that we work with pretty frequently, so we'll ask them to share with their networks as well, in the hopes of our subsequent meetings getting more feedback from them and incorporating that into the process. I did just want to note one thing. Councilor Rodriguez, thank you for your feedback. In our conversations with the state, we'll share that this is something that we wanted to learn more about, whether or not, I know that the districts are drawn, the precincts rather, they're drawn with the most current information available from the 2020 census. However, I think it's worth asking, well, what about the pipeline apartments that are coming in? We'll note that in some of the questions that we have. We have record of projects that are permitted and see what they think about that. So yeah, that's one thing that we'll kind of note in our reservoir of thoughts, and provide feedback, kind of a question and answer section as they come up. So with that, I think that's all we have tonight to share with all of you. City Council President.
Thank you. Also, want to make sure that we avail ourselves to our cable channel 22, to put the email address, for example, the website, our social media, whatever we can, to really get the information out to as many people far and wide, so people have that ability to get that. And I know that the working group is going to be working toward that end very, very soon. And the other point, Madam Chair, through you, is in your dealings with the Secretary of State's office, I would ask if we could, as a factor or a consideration, can we do an overlay of the proposed state legislative districts? So I'm thinking most specifically the state representatives district, the new boundary lines that we expect to see. A concern that I just want to articulate again through you, Madam Chair, is a concern that I have is taking a precinct and splitting that up between two representatives, Because I think one of the things what we'd like to accomplish, among many things, one of the things I think we would like to accomplish is to, A, avoid voter confusion, which I think we talked about briefly here a second ago. And sometimes when you cut a precinct, not a district, but a precinct in half or wherever, that could add to some voter confusion. And of course, voter confusion, certainly the worst case scenario is voter disenfranchisement. And we want to have as many, obviously, we don't want to confuse voters. We want to have people involved in our process as much as they can. And we're trying to take away obstacles and barriers. So, and that could be a barrier. I just want us to be cognizant and aware, and in your workings with the Secretary of State, I would ask if we can just make sure that, and then we can make a determination, is this where this line goes here? Are we willing to sacrifice that potential to have a more neighborhood, but I don't know where that line is. So through you, I would hope that we could also get that kind of overlay.
Yes, thank you for the feedback. It's noted, and we'll get that information.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Abdo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, and what I was thinking as Councilor Rodriguez was talking about all of the new housing stock that is coming through the city, and then Mr. LaPlante talking about something different, but talked about an overlay map. Why not create a heat map or an overlay map of everything your office or the city has approved for housing stock that Councilor Rodriguez was speaking to, and provide that overlay map in addition to the state delegation districts, also what we have on record. You talked about a reservoir, whatever we have on a reservoir for approved housing, regardless, have that as an overlay, because I think we understand it very well, what's on the table, what's been on the table and in the pipeline. But that might also be helpful not only to the Secretary of State, but for us over the next couple of weeks. As we look at this today, it's awfully static and two-dimensional. If I know that a mill building or a housing, project with several hundred homes, obviously projects aren't getting expanded, but these mills are, that would help us better understand that in 2 years, all of a sudden you've got 2,000 more units, where today, or the 2020 census didn't get it, right, because they don't exist yet, but they will. And so that might be a really helpful overlay, and I just put that out there as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
No, thank you, all of you, for just to bring those suggestions back to then. And as you can be taking note, that basically would be my call to you, just this is how I feel. Like that can be the population today, but 3 months from now, we're not gonna get the same numbers. So that is why I think we need to start from that. Once we have that information on the table, then we can make a decision, and hopefully by December 15, we all can be on the same page.
Absolutely. Thank you for the feedback. That's noted as well. So just a reminder for our next, we're going to follow through with all these points. For our next meeting, and even individually, feel free to reach out to the planning department. If you have thoughts, additional thoughts, comments, we'd love to have that. And we're going to continue to have more conversations with the state. And hopefully we, by the end of the week, can have more information. It's likely that we'll have more information tomorrow, and we'll share with all of you and post that publicly. But if you do, by the next meeting, have any other additional thoughts, it'd be great if we see that before the meeting, in the hopes of answering those questions that same night. But yeah, that's really all I have. Look forward to working with all of you and answering your questions.
Thank you. Since you have that information, let's say that the meeting is going to be like in 3 days. So you can bring that answer back to your working group and present it to us for our next meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, that's the plan. But if we have an additional suggestion, we also can feel free to call.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we did talk about in the working group is, as I noted earlier, we do have a couple of redundancy dates in case we keep going over another issue and need more information to drill down in. So those are available in the event that we need it. So
Well, Councilor President, your museum square is coming back to me.
Madam,
Which was belonged
now,
to me.
Madam Chair, with all due respect, not easily.
In the first place, you shouldn't accept that, because when I first run, that was part of my district.
Madam Chair, you're 100% correct.
So, since we don't have to take any action, okay, Councilor,
Through you, I know that the city attorney is here. I would, if I could, ask her to come up, and since we have some meetings scheduled for the committee on the whole, I'm just looking for a best management practice with respect to whether we should table and recess or adjourn for the evening, with the, subject to the call of the chair, which will probably be could be as early as next Monday, the 15th. Is there any advice that you can provide to the committee as to the best practice as we anticipate having a meeting on Monday? Should we recess? Should we table this and recess and then come back, or should we adjourn tonight and come back again at a whole different meeting?
You should probably table it and recess, but I mean, you still need to post it within 48 hours. You would still need to post it by Thursday if you're having it Monday night. So this one posting won't cover another meeting. I'm not sure if that was what your question was, but I just want to make sure that you do post it again.
That's helpful. Thank
Yep.
you.
the motion will be table and reset. Looking for a motion.
Motion to table and recess, this item.
Second?
The motion has been made properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.